People, I saw you just talking, but I couldn't hear what you were saying. What can you say to people here?
They're not alone. The people of New York are with them. The people of America are with them. We continue to make the search and rescue effort the highest priority. We're doing everything we can, and thousands of people are helping right now, and millions are praying right now.
The people who I've been talking to, they say that the authorities have been incredibly organized, incredibly helpful, but they say they just have no clues. Do you have any idea when they would get some clues?
We just can't give time frames or timelines. That wouldn't be right. There's never been a darker day or a greater tragedy in American history, and that's why we're doing everything we can, trying to give the people as much information as quickly as possible. But obviously nothing like this has ever happened. But we will get through it. The people are strong. They're standing shoulder to shoulder, and we will get beyond this.
Tell me, I've mostly seen here what city services have done for people. Tell me what the state of New York is doing for people, for families here.
It's been a great cooperative effort. The shelter behind us is something where it's a state armory where we mobilize the National Guard. But it's not a question of this agency or that agency, the city leadership, the state government. President Bush has delivered every single thing from Washington, from the federal government we've requested. And most importantly, you see out here thousands of volunteers, people without any official role, but just here to help, and they are helping.
Thank you, Governor George Pataki. Thank you. Now back to you, Wolf.
Right now, Governor.
Thank you,
very
Elizabeth.
much, Elizabeth, and thank the governor for us as well. Meanwhile, here in Washington, Congress is working with a singleness of purpose seldom seen, both to fund the recovery effort and to back a U.S. military's response. Joining us now, the House Minority Leader Richard Gephardt, as well as the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Dennis Hastert. Thanks to both of you for joining us. First of all, Mr. Speaker, what's the status of a resolution or some sort of declaration that you're working on?
Well, there's three things that we've done. First of all, yesterday we passed a resolution, a sense of the Congress, a joint resolution saying what the Congress's feeling on this is and vowing to work with the President. The second thing is tonight we will pass an appropriations bill to help FEMA, first of all, take care of victims and try to find the rest of the victims, a huge cost there, and also to get our airlines flying again and the transportation committees that we can make sure that our skies are safe so people can resume traveling and life as normal as in this country. And the third thing is to give the military, the President, the ability or resources to, first of all, investigate and find the people who perpetrated this terrorist act. And then tomorrow we will begin and probably go through Saturday and debate and pass legislation that gives the President the power to pursue those people who committed this act.
Congressman Gephardt, are there any serious differences between you and the Speaker, between the Democrats and the Republicans, on how much authority to grant the President in terms of his planning for a military response?
We're working on that, and I'm confident that we will find a resolution of the minor, frankly, differences that there are. We need to be together, and we are together as parties and as people, and with the President. This is a national challenge, and I think all of our people are united, as we were in World War II, to see this challenge down and to make sure we succeed in facing it.
Speaker Hastert, it's Greta Van Susteren. Speaker, how involved are you with the White House on this, or is the White House pretty much handling this themselves?
Well, we've been in constant contact with the White House, and it's been done on a bipartisan basis. Both Leader Gephardt and I have been to the White House. We've talked about these issues, and we're working with them. We have to have this type of cooperation to make sure that both the ability to give the President the power is something that we can all agree on, and also the amount of money that we need to clean up the problems, to take care of our victims in Virginia and New York, and incidentally families that go through that whole Northeast area, and then go forward and fund the investigation and the ability to bring these terrorists to justice.
Congressman Gephardt, let me switch gears a little bit. Lots of changes are going to happen in air travel. How do we balance that with sort of issues of civil rights and the great freedoms we've enjoyed in this country?
Well, Greta, we're in a new day, and unfortunately we're in a new world, and we're probably not going to go back to the world that we were in. We have to find a new balance in our country between freedom and security. And we have to do that without giving up the needed civil liberties that we all enjoy and want. This is going to be a hard time, and we have to work together as Americans to try to redefine those two issues and to return to as much freedom as we possibly can. This is a big challenge, but America's up to it. Every generation of Americans has met the challenges of their time, and our generation is going to do the same.
Congressman Gephardt, let me follow up with one more question. If the United States identifies that it's Osama bin Laden and his cell who is responsible for this terrorism, and of course he is one of the 10 most, he's on the 10 most wanted list in connection with the bombings of the embassies in Africa. If we go forward and handle that problem, can we then go back to where we were in terms of our freedoms?
I don't think so, Greta. I would hope that that could be, but I don't think it is. I think we're facing a foe here that's much more complicated and long-lasting, much more committed, much more willpower than we would like to even believe and admit. So we got a long fight on our hands here. I think we can win it, and I think we can do it while preserving necessary freedoms and civil liberties in this country. But we've got to really work hard together in a united fashion to do that. I'm confident we will do that.
Speaker Hastert, there's been an executive order on the books since the Ford administration, since President Jerry Ford signed it, namely that bars the U.S. from engaging in political assassinations. Is it time to rethink that executive order?
Well, you know, one of the things that we see here, this is not necessarily political. These are terrorists. They've infiltrated this country. They've invaded the liberty and freedom that our people in this country have known and cherished for over 200 years. So these people are here to disrupt the lifestyle of Americans, to put this country in terror. I think, first of all, there's a resolve by this American people, by this Congress, by the President. We're not going to let that happen. And just like any criminal that perpetrates a crime in this country, we're going to go after that person. We'll find out who it is, go after it, and bring that person to justice.
Well, the question I guess a lot of Americans are asking, Mr. Speaker, is if Osama bin Laden did plan these terrorist operations and the U.S. concludes that definitively, should he be brought to justice or should he be killed?
I think Osama bin Laden better say his prayers.
What about that, Congressman Gephardt?
Well, I think the American people expect us to find who did this, to bring them to justice. In doing that, it may be that there has to be violence committed by American troops. If it comes to that, that's what should be done. This will not stand. What happened in this country, this is the largest violence on our soil by a foreign force in the history of our country, and it will not stand.
Mr. Speaker, have we tied the hands of our intelligence community over the years that they were not able to gather the appropriate intelligence to perhaps see this coming so it could have been prevented?
Look, I don't want to go back over what's happened over the years.
But have they not gotten enough funding? Have there been rules that have been put in place? I know that there's a lot of reluctance to pay people who might be in a conspiracy to give us information, but those problems.
I think we need to put resources in human intelligence, and I think we need to reevaluate our whole intelligence regime. Porter Goss, who's our ranking member, and along with Nancy Pelosi, who is the ranking Democrat, we're having some serious discussions. We need to make sure that the resources are there so that we can gather the intelligence to protect the American people. And there's some questions where they're there in the past, but the past is past. We need to move forward and get this work done.
Mr. Speaker and Congressman Gephardt, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Wolf?
Thanks, Greta. And from Washington, let's go back to New York once again. CNN senior analyst Jeff Greenfield is there. Jeff, you just heard blunt talk from the Speaker of the House, a Republican, and the Minority Leader, a Democrat, basically saying to Osama bin Laden, I think in paraphrasing what the Speaker said, say your prayers. What does that say to you?
Well, it says to me that they are planning to take him out. But the other thing that you talked about, Wolf, that I thought was very interesting was the whole question of how much of our liberties are we going to be giving up. And the real question, I guess, is how many steps are we going to take that will ultimately be fruitless in our effort to get some security? Curbside check-in, would that have stayed the hijackers? Every one of us has been through metal detectors for the last God knows how many years in airports. It's that kind of reaction, that mix of we must do everything we can conceivably think of, that in some cases may not only restrict what we do, but have really no impact on the broader fight against this incredibly shadowy enemy.
willing in the short run to give up our civil rights. I mean, everyone here is, you know, in this country is willing to give up anything to get on a plane safely. As time goes on, the fact is that curbside checking wouldn't have stopped this. The question about whether you've packed your own bags wouldn't have stopped this, or whether anyone asked you to carry. None of this would. So in a big picture, what is going to happen? What are we willing to do?
Well, you know, I think the most important question before us, and it is why what follows is in some ways as tough as what we have gone through the last 3 days, is how much are we going to think rationally about what we have to do to make ourselves more secure? You know, and I know there have been 100 bomb threats. We saw the Capitol being evacuated on a call that perhaps a week ago would not have been taken nearly that seriously. And I think in this sense we have to be asking ourselves whether or not our understandable instinct to protect ourselves is going to make us far, not only less secure internally, but lead us into habits that make us a lot less like America. Everybody said America is going to change, and that is regrettably probably true. But somewhere along the line, we need to keep our sense of reason enough so that we don't give the terrorists yet another victory, more than they have already had in what was behind me.
Jeff, as these horrible events sink in, take us down to Manhattan, and right now, has there been any change in the mood from yesterday to today as far as you can discern?
You know, there is this slow return to some kind of normal. I mean, the numbness is kind of fading a little bit, but every time you go into a major thoroughfare, you can feel the anguish. And remember, Wolf and Greta, we have not yet begun to really uncover the worst, that is, all of those bodies. You saw these scenes of people showing up with pictures of their loved ones and saying, if you have any information, please call. And our hearts go out to those people, in part because we know that literally thousands of them are missing only in the formal sense. They are buried under rubble, and they will not be seen. And we are going to be learning day after day of people we know, we may have worked with, we may have been friends with, who were there. Just one last point. This has been a golden decade for the city of New York. You know, we've all talked about its renaissance. Crime is down. Money flowed in from the markets. The city felt to be the center of the universe in some way, which is why the terrorists struck here. And to say that we are slowly getting a sense of normalcy is really misleading. In the long run, this has changed this city, I believe, to its roots, and you can just see it going out into the streets and watching people react in ways large and small.
Greta, let me ask you, because I know you've spent a lot of time looking at this investigation over these past few days. Is there one single aspect of what happened that jumps out in your mind that says to you there must be something totally crazy going on that has to be immediately corrected?
No, you know, it's funny, Wolf, maybe I'm a little bit raw since I heard the explosion at the Pentagon, turned and saw it, and I was only a few blocks away, and I had particles actually raining on me. I'm quite raw from it, so that's the first thing that jumps out at my mind. But the important thing, I think, is that, you know, the Americans devote the resources so that we can get this broad conspiracy. I'm not worried about those 18 hijackers. They're dead. But what is so terrible about this is that people who are willing to give up their life to cause crime, like these suicide pilots, are extraordinarily dangerous. And if nothing else, we have to get all the people who are involved and send them a message. If you just had a little bit of involvement, guess what? You're going to take the full impact of the United States. So I think, you know, get out there and investigate. Anybody who had a slight involvement, you're in, and you're going to take full responsibility.
Hey, Wolf, just one last point. We really have to stop calling this act senseless. Evil, monstrous, fine. But the terrorists knew exactly what they were doing. And from their twisted perspective, this was a highly sensible act. It struck at the heart of the greatest city in the world's one superpower. It has made us, it has rained death on thousands of people. It has got us questioning ourselves and our security. And if the response is to be rational and effective, we have to stop throwing phrases around like senseless. This was a deliberate and successful, horribly successful, evil act.
Jeff Greenfield in New York, thank you so much once again. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have. Stay tuned, of course, to CNN's continuing coverage throughout the night, including a special report with Aaron Brown and Paula Zahn at 10 p.m. Eastern. That's 1 hour from now. Thanks very much for watching. I'm Wolf Blitzer in Washington. Good night, Greta.
Good night, Wolf. And up next, Larry King Live. Tonight, Larry is joined by Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld, Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton, and others. I'm Greta Van Susteren. Larry's next.